Becky.
And I'm Sarah.
And we're doing Bickering book reviews. Today we are talking about the book Being Jazz, which is by Jennings. And Jennings, which I was not as familiar with as Sarah was, is a reality TV star. And she is 15, 16?
Yeah, 15.
15 years old, and she kind of rose to fame because she is very open about the fact that she's transgendered, and she talks about the issues that she's faced and different intolerances she's had and different experiences she's had and ways that she's been able to use her experience to help others. And that is what the book, her memoir, Being Jazz, is about. And just to start, like I said earlier, I had never watched the TV show. I'd seen commercials for the TV show, but I had never watched it.
So I watched the show since it started, but there are quite a few things that it never covered in the show. Like, I don't know if I ever saw the whole Barbara Walters interview, and that seemed like that really is kind of the springboard for everything public eye related to jazz. I've never even seen the original.
I think we actually watched part of the Barbara Walters interview in one of my developmental psychology classes, because we did talk about transgendered in that class.
And I also think, so related to that though, it definitely got into the background, like as far as the parents knowing each other since they were really young. Like, I didn't know a lot of that. But as the rest of the book goes on, like, it basically is just like the show, and there isn't much more to it. Like, if you watch this show, you've basically read the book. However, I super love her family. Like, they're kind of my favorite part of the show, especially her twin brothers. I think they are hilarious.
And they're not in the book a lot, but I did like the fact that even like her older, like her grandparents, who came across as very traditional, were like, okay, well, we thought we had a grandson, but we actually have a granddaughter, and okay. And I like the fact that her whole family was very tolerant, and it's a very nice portrayal of how people can accept and just be like, I love this person no matter what.
Right. I mean, yeah, it is super. For me, it was unexpected that everybody kind of got on board. And they refer to it in the show, but not everybody in her family was on board with it, but a lot of them did come around to it. And you can kind of, through the show, kind of see how the father had struggled with it. It seemed like a little bit more than everybody else, especially when when Jazz was talking about like dating boys and interacting with boys on that level, how, he was reflecting on what he would have been like at that age and kind of understanding where the issues are stemming from or where the bullying is stemming from, knowing now that it's not right, but knowing that that's probably where he would have found himself at that age.
And I felt like there wasn't a lot of bullying in the book. I feel like the book really focused on positives and not necessarily a lot of the intolerance that she would have experienced. Like, there were issues with the school not letting her use the female bathroom, and there were issues with the soccer team. But I feel like, and it might just be because of where they live and their community and how supportive her parents were, I feel like there weren't a lot of big intolerant issues, if that makes any sense, in the book.
See, and in the show, it wasn't as much in the book, but you do see it in the show. You see, people saying nasty things to her as she's just outside eating lunch. Or when she does, at one point, and I thought they talked about this in the book, but at one point, her picture book was banned in one of the communities.
Yes.
And she went to that community to talk about it. But while there, it was a community event. So you had all kinds show up, and people would call her names.
See, and I felt like they talked about the picture book and the picture book being not allowed to be part of the event that they wanted it to be, and then the other event, they didn't talk about negative interactions. And maybe that's the point of the book. Maybe the show shows one aspect of it, and the book shows the positive side. Because there are some people there are kids at school that taunt her in the book.
Right. I just don't think it got. I think the show definitely gets more in depth with it all,
right.
Because in the show she definitely takes kind of any chance she can to kind of combat ignorance and talk more about her issues. Whereas I think this was more of a general representation of her life, and I think it really kind of glossed over a lot of things.
Right. I feel like this is a good book to give to a kid, or for a kid to find who may be transgendered, or they maybe there's a new kid in school who's transgendered, or maybe there's a new kid in the neighborhood who's transgendered, and it kind of shows you about how they're just like anybody else and that you can be tolerant. But I feel like it doesn't necessarily provide the most complete vision of what a transgendered person deals with interacting with society.
I can agree with that, but my thing is though, like this is definitely something that I would give someone who's starting that journey
Right.
to coming to terms with it, especially because in the back of the book,
Yeah.
she lists out all of the resources that
Which
you
I
can
like
use,
that.
like organizations, further reading,
Other books, yeah.
you know, and I think that anybody starting it, even an adult, I think I would kind of bring them to, because it really just kind of gives you an insight into it, not full-fledged to see how everything like
Right.
happens in the world, but I think it's a good starting point.
It's one of those books that if they go missing from the library, you're like, maybe the person who stole it needed it more. It's like the books about HIV and teen pregnancy. When they go missing, you're like, maybe the person who stole it was embarrassed, but they needed that information.
Right, it's definitely necessary. It's a good
It's a good book. It's a good book to introduce concepts. It's a good book. It's a good book to have kids read in school.
Yeah.
Because I think it really does also clarify the difference between homosexuality and transgendered, which I think we've talked about before, but I feel like that's something people are confused about.
Yeah, and I think kind of society's going to be that way, I think, for a while, just because in society's mind, they just assume that if you're transgendered, you're automatically homosexual. And I think that with the LGBTQ, that doesn't really, like that kind of lumps everybody in the same area, so then society just automatically assumes that they're all the same.
The other thing I was curious about, and I looked and I didn't see any notices on it, was if she actually wrote it herself. Because a lot of times celebrities have ghostwriters, and I couldn't find anything.
See, and I was wondering that too, because last year, she published a picture book, and I know that she had help with that.
They talk about that in the book, about how she had help with that.
Right, and I was just wondering, as I'm reading it, if she had help with it. Because the book, I mean, it's a big project. Like, that's a big project for a 15-year-old, and I don't know if I personally could have done that.
But, you know, it's not super long, and if she was a person who had writing talent, and she appears to go to a good school, so she might have the skills to write that, and maybe she just had an editor. Lots of people have editors.
It's true. I mean, and you can tell kind of that she did have a good, like a major hand in it, just because, like I was telling you, it did seem kind of repetitive after a while, and the same statement, I have a girl brain with a boy body, like that. It's in the show like every episode, and like that kind of tagline is in everything.
The narrative felt like a 15-year-old. So if she did have help, I feel like she did did the guiding of it, if nothing else, because it felt like a 15-year-old's voice, which is what it should be. It's a memoir. It should sound like her.
Yeah.
So, do you have anything else?
No, I think I'm good.
So I gave Being Jazz 2 fairies. I thought it was very good. I thought it was interesting, but I didn't completely love it.
I gave it 1 unicorn. I thought it was good. I think it's definitely something that you should have in your collection. It's something that I will definitely recommend to somebody. I mean, story-wise, it wasn't like completely compelling because the show was more compelling than the book. But I definitely think it's good at what it does.
It was good for what it was. And that's all we have. So bye.
Adios.